anyway, it's thunderstorms and all kind of mess here in Chicago. If the computer shuts down, just bear with me. Yes, y'all notice I am dressed for the funeral of Pan-Africanism. This discussion tonight, we're going to be talking about the death of Pan-Africanism, and ADOS and FBA are taking victory laps. Oh yeah, sorry about that. So yes, Pan-Africanism is dead. Yvette Carnell said that Pan-Africanism was dead like 5 years ago, and we didn't believe her, and now they have their bona fide truth. Pan-Africanism is indeed dead. You know, I'm mad at y'all. I can't see nothing. Hold on. Okay. I'm mad at y'all, right? Because I go away for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. I step away for 2 weeks, and y'all didn't let Pan-Africanism die. Y'all didn't let the Frederick Douglass, what is it? Frederick Douglass, what is it? FDMG. Marcus Garvey Academy closed down. Y'all couldn't hold this shit together for once, so I had to come back after visiting Kansas City and New York, and I arrived back in Chicago only to find out that Pan-Africanism is dead. Damn. So yeah, I had to throw Don the Black and come on here and pay my respects, brothers and sisters. Woo, sorry. Whew. I had to don the black and come pay my respects to DC. Yeah, right. DC is under occupation. DC is occupied internal, but you can't say it's a foreign power. That's a whole discussion right there, man. These white folks, the bugger got no shame. I every day of my life, I engage in this world under white hegemony. Professor William Mackey used to give these lectures. And when he gets to talking about white folks in history, white folks in contemporary society, or white folks as they project into the future, he would say, and Mackey was a Gullah Geechee. He was a Geechee man. And he would always say, my grandma said, she said that about them white folks. My grandma always said that the bugger got no shame. The bugger got no shame. And that's, I wish I never heard Professor Mackey say those words. Because as I look at the news, as I just dwell in life, all I think, it repeats in my head, is the bugger got no shame. And Karl Marx, I got in trouble for suggesting that Karl Marx analysis has some validity. I think this is Karl Marx. I could be wrong. Karl Marx says shame is a revolutionary sentiment. And I know we get caught up in respectability politics and all that kind of stuff. Buckra got no shame, I guess. But she said the bugger or Buckra. Maybe it could have been Buckra, but my Midwestern ears heard bugger. Buckra got no shame. I'm sorry, it was Buckra. Okay, I stand corrected. Double team me. The Buckra got no shame. And shame is a revolutionary sentiment. If a person doesn't have a capacity for shame, watch out. It's a very powerful sentiment amongst social primates. Even in most social creatures that have the capacity for thing. But anyway, let's move on. Y'all couldn't hold this together for 2 weeks. And I wasn't planning on being gone this long. When I was in KC, shout out to all my KC folks, Jeffersons, the Hamiltons, the Gregors. I ain't going to list all of them. I always remember, I got to give a shout out to Big Uncle Chris and Auntie Vaughn and Tanisha and my brother Barry. Now, that's it. No more shout outs. Cousins and all the rest of y'all know. No more shout outs. Kansas City, all the Kansas City people. It's so many of them. It's so many of them. You know, my wife, she come from, she's like American. She come from good genes. She got good genes. Her family is very affluent black folks. So we go to Kansas City and it's just like, we get back down home, Midwestern style. And, you know, she, bless her heart, she's able to hang with us. And then we go to New York, where my influence. See, I got folks in New York, Shout out to my New York cousin, big auntie. Shout out to everybody. It was really good seeing everybody, but I wasn't planning on being gone that long. I fully intended to maybe break off and do the shows, but it was just nonstop. You know, and shout out to my youngest. He started school, a Chicago public school. He started his first day of his senior year at a CPS school. And I kid you not, you know, my son, I got a son who's a senior in college and a son who's a senior in high school. And both of them were supposed to be taught how to not be gay and how to be real alpha males by Dr. Fubar at his academy. So I hope Dr. Fubar is going to open up a grad school for my oldest and a university for my youngest, because they done aged out. But I'm going to talk about the whole school hustle. It's absurd as it is. But anyway, let's move on. Y'all just should have held this shit together till I got back. It's too much to talk about, really. I got all this stuff going through my mind, so I'm gonna just say what I got to say. And I can't be long. It's like, I don't know if y'all can see it, but I'm seeing lightning, and it's the weather's bad here in Chicago. I'm not saying it's bad. The weather is not conducive to being on a computer or using a lot of electricity or sitting next to a window. There's no such thing as bad weather. I mean, the weather cycle and the ecosystem of the earth, we have to adjust to it. We shouldn't expect it to adjust to us. But that's a whole nother thing. Oh, and another thing, I got a nephew who was vegan, and I go back and I run and I see my nephew, and he's back on the swine. And so he was vegan for like 2-3 years, and he had come here with my niece and my great nieces, and came here, and they were headed up to Michigan, to Detroit, and they stayed here. They drove up from Kansas City to Chicago. They stayed with us a night, and then they headed up to Michigan, somewhere in Michigan. And after when they spent the night, my wife made them dinner, and he was like, "Wow, this stuff is good, and it's vegan. I'm going vegan." Dude went vegan, and that was before the pandemic, maybe 5 years. And then I get to Kansas City, and he's sitting across the room from me, not making eye contact. I'm not going to say your name. I'll say that I used to call him Black Moses because he had a huge beard, but then he didn't cut the beard down a little. But dude, then he didn't left the set. And I told him, man, this is veganism shit. Shit is real. You know, it's soy in, soy out. But he said he going to come back. And then there was another person close to me. But my big auntie Sharon, Mother Sharon, she's married, and she's in the church. Yeah, she's the mother of a Carpenium Baptist church in Blue Springs, Missouri. My Uncle Carl is the pastor, and she's the first lady of the church. She's vegan, and she's holding it down. She had some vegan brownies there waiting for us, and a whole bunch of other vegan treats. So I still got a big auntie who's holding it down. And my nephew, then punked out, back on the swine, back to drinking excretions, drinking and eating the excretions of tortured animals. So I'm going to keep working on them, man. But the vegan community, we got to come with consequences, man. Everybody's just coming in and out of our shit and ain't paying dues. Real talk, son. Vegan gang. Right? Anyway, moving on to the next thing. No, I had to talk because, like I said, this shit could go out. When I was setting up, everything went blank. Our internet went out, and we got it back up. And then, so that's why I was a couple of minutes late. So I don't know what's going to happen. But let's just deal with this bullshit. You know, Tariq Nasheed, the head hustler in charge for the Foundational Black American Movement, the FBA movement, and Yvette Carnell, one of the co-leaders or co-founders of the, see, my wife messed me up on this, American Descendant of Slavery. My wife always thought, whenever I'd say ADOS this, and we'd have whole discussions about ADOS, and she thought the A in ADOS stood for African. And then I was like, I don't know, we would never say ADOS or ADOS. So one day I was like, yeah, you damn American Descendants of Slavery. And she's like, that's not right. And my wife is always trying to fix things. She's a nurturer. She's a teacher. So you tell her something. And if you tell her something that's so backwards and twisted, her brain will fix it. She will hear what you should have said instead of what you actually said. And I kid you not. I kid you not. And I've seen several times, I can't even tell you the stories, but I've seen several times people tell my wife some crazy, mixed up, really bad shit. And she hears it different. Because she's like one of them, I know that he ain't said what I thought he said. I know he didn't just say that. He must have said this. And I'll be like, no, that's what he actually said. You know, that's what he actually said. So she thought it was. So now whenever I'm thinking about, but you know, you got these two organizations and they successfully started this, tried to take over. They colonized the reparations movement. The reparations movement came out of the revolutionary conscious Pan-African movement. You know, some of the OGs, Brother Randall, the late, great Conrad Worrell, Dr. Conrad Worrell, what's the brother's name? Samori Grace, or Brother Brill Grace. These brothers were part of revolutionary Black Pan-African organizations, and they also were prominent founders in Cobra. And the African diaspora and Black Americans or African Americans, our struggle for reparations was never in opposition to, hostile to, or subversive of any other Black struggles. So Black reparations in the United States was in solidarity with the Caribbean Federation and the decolonization movement in the Caribbean, the liberation and decolonization of Haiti. It's founded during South African apartheid. The reparations representatives and movements were always hand in hand and in full solidarity and support to the anti-apartheid decolonization of all of sub-Saharan Africa, particularly the Congo, Lumumba, and Nkrumah. So at one time, prior to these scumbags, reparations was a weapon in the larger arsenal of Pan-African liberation. And it was always understood that any resources, benefits, advances that came to African Americans in part would relieve some of our suffering, but would also be fed into the larger struggle. And we were always told, because we're in the belly of the beast, we're in the seat of the empire. When the United States is flexing its muscles in Central and South America, in the Caribbean, particularly in Haiti and other places, African Americans would assert ourselves, and we would take to the streets to show our oppositions to our own country where we have citizenship and our solidarity to foreign enemies. And even back then, when I was coming up, Black people, Black people were always accused of having either disloyalty, being insufficiently lacking patriotism. And when someone said you as a Black person in the 90s, you're not patriotic, that was a compliment. That was a compliment. So, good question. Why don't you go to their website? Why don't you go to their website and talk to them? And let me tell you something. In Cobra has made great strides, but you know, you short-sighted. Where my money at? Because that's where they got it. If we ain't got no check, then the movements fail. So I digress. Anyway, where was I? So anyway, long story short, you had Yvette who came up with as a financial literacy scammer, you know, telling Black folks how to invest. And who was she in bed with? Figuratively, not literally, with that other brother. Who was she with? I don't know. Was it Roland Martin or some other? I I don't remember. I didn't fool with them, man. I didn't even look over. I didn't look back there. But when she broke up with that individual, she went and started this ADOS mess, and basically another Boyce Watkins. Thank you. I'm sorry, Roland. Don't roll on me, Roland. Man, Roland's like a vicious Boyce Watkins. Yes. I know people call Roland's name. They better come correct, because Roland's a vicious little teddy bear with teeth and claws. I'm called Roland Martin, the carnivorous teddy bear. It was Boyce Watkins. I'm sorry. And he's the one, I confuse them all the time. Why do I confuse Boyce Watkins? I'm just looking at him just to get, yeah. So he's the ascot. So Boyce Watkins is the one that's in the fraternity and do the fraternity dance. Right? Anyway. yeah, Cuddly Mike. Nah. Okay, Roland Martin, I don't know. They look like Boyce looks like and what's funny is Boyce and Roland Martin, they kind of favor each other to me. What do I mean? They all look alike. Yeah, because I saw Boyce doing that frat dance, doing the Q-Dog dance, one of them weird ass, fraternity dances. And I said Roland Martin, or was it Roland Martin? I confused the two. I'm sorry. But anyway, back to the thing at hand. Long story short, the reparations movement was never hostile to African immigrants, African decolonization. The reparations movement was never essentially about African people getting a leg up in the system. It was more about African liberation than African integration or Black integration. And Africans acknowledging our plight and receiving compensation for the historical injustice was never at all considered to set us above or apart or distance us from our African lineage. We didn't have to trade Americanness. We didn't have to trade in our Africanity for our Americanness in order to get justice from America. But that all changed when these scumbags got hold of, and I tell you, these are the same people that if they were active a generation ago would have been like, oh, these reparation people are begging. Stop begging. Because I remember early in the late 80s, early 90s, people were like, reparations, America don't owe you nothing. We need to stop killing each other. America don't owe, we always begging. We get a job. That's what people would say about reparations. And now those same people with those same sentiments are now like, oh yeah, cut the check. And they turned a unifying struggle into a separatist, jingoistic, xenophobic struggle. But I digress. I don't know if you know. If you don't know, you are more sophisticated and you're living a better life and you're conducting yourself in a more sophisticated manner than I am, and I commend you if you don't know this. But if you do know this, then you in the gully, you gully like I am. And you and I need to get our life together. But Dr. Fubar, I said I was going to stop calling him because a Kansas City woman brought him down. The Kansas City women have been trying to bring me down all my life. I've had to fight. I was born and raised in Kansas City, and I knew when Dr. Fubar publicly started attacking and beefing with a sister from Kansas City, I knew it was over. My big sister, Tanisha. I was just visiting with my sister from me and her at Utah. I'm like, man, listen. I know these Kansas City sisters, they don't play. Missouri, state of misery. Killer City, state of misery from the I-70, from Kansas City to St. Louis and all points in between. Don't mess with them sisters. And when I say don't mess with them, yeah, they cook good, they clean good, they dress good, they smell good, they good. So when I say don't mess with them, yeah, you can date them, you can marry them, you can procreate with them, but don't mess with them in terms of play with them. Don't do that. And, Dr. Fubar been messing with conscious strippers from Atlanta and sisters from Cali and sisters from Philly, Haiti. He had a Haitian sister and did them all wrong. I'm like, well, he's all right. He's gonna bounce back, but he stepped to his sister from state of misery, Killer City, KC, you know, and now it's over. So Dr. Fubar, long story short, has not accounted. He's only accounted for about, he raised 1.6 to 1.7 million dollars for the school. He sunk about 500 less, between 400,000 to $500,000 in these complex in these 4 buildings in Wilmington, Delaware. And then he began a long social media process of showing himself painting, preparing, and hiring and rallying around these buildings. And then it's found out that those buildings are being sold off for various fees and penalties because they don't play. Commercial property is horrible. I've owned businesses, ain't nothing like, trying to start a business and you get up in the morning and you head to the site and you show up, the contractors ain't there. Or or even worse, you show up at a business you try to get together and you got a sticker on the door where they didn't tape something to your door. I've had work stoppage orders because the contractors didn't pull the right permission slips, what they call permits. And then they was telling me you should have hired an expediter. I didn't even never heard of an expediter before. And so I know that feeling of showing up at your place of business, your place of commerce, your place of whatever you're doing, commercial property, and having the city on you. It could happen to any of us. But I digress. And so anyway, Dr. Fubar is losing the school. There's like $47,000. And like I said, if you're just hearing this for the first time, bless your heart. Bless your heart. And I feel guilty for bringing you into the trenches. If you know about all this and this is just an overview for you, then shame on you and shame on me. Anyway, Dr. Fubar. But I'm going to make this a bigger point. This ain't even about Dr. Fubar. I said I was going to stop calling him Fubar because now he done been put through it by a Kansas City sister. So me and Fubar, we have some things in common. Dr. Fubar losing the school, back taxes. And then I heard, this is hearsay, that, groundskeeping, he didn't mow the lawn and this and that. Even here in Chicago, if you don't pick up the trash or keep your lawn at a certain level, the city, the alderman will send and can ticket you. Your building, if you live in a house or a building, the condo association or the homeowner can get penalties for not keeping the grounds. So he has those type of tickets and penalties. So the school is up for auction. He claims that his bank accounts have all been frozen. He said because, and I quote, this is a quote, this is for academic purposes. If this was not a direct quote, these words would never come out of my mouth. But Dr. Fubar said, and I quote, Pastor Bussy and Fishy Coochie tried to hack his accounts. And when Pastor Bussy and Fishy Coochie tried to hack his accounts, the bank froze all his accounts. So he has no access to the funds that were donated for the academy, and he has no access to his personal funds. So school never opened, and the buildings for the school under foreclosure, accounts hacked, and of course, where he attacked several women. There's a few women, but the two main women is this Haitian sister and the Kansas City sister. So he got that Kansas City G, that straight razor, cut you quick and cut you slick, straight razor Kansas City heat on him, and he got that Haitian Vodun Fubar. Damn, that man got a lot of heart. He's braver than me. And he said, what did he say? Politics before Punani. He don't take his own advice. And he should have said he put Punani's plural before politics. That's wild. And I digress. Anyway, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess, right? And what makes that relevant, and the reason we're talking about it, because this kind of shit happens. This is not an uncommon occurrence for prominent men. This type of ditty, this salacious type shit is all too common, especially with prominent men, whether they have fame or wealth and status or all three. So, you know, you look at, there's a minister, a pastor, or some low-level bureaucrat politician, or some successful businessman. You find this type of shit all the time. But what makes this relevant to us and why we're talking about this particular thing is that this man has not only promoted himself as the Prince of Pan-Africanism for 2 decades, King Kong consciousness, that he says he's had conscious community and the Pan-African community and movement on lock. He is a self-appointed representative of Pan-African scholarship, Pan-African ideology, the Pan-African struggle, Pan-African solutions, even the Pan-African aesthetic. Now, again, that's not enough to get my attention. Not only has he done this, this motherfucker has convinced enough black people, not just in the United States. This dude has been to Ghana. He's been throughout the Caribbean. He's been throughout Asia, China, Japan. He's been to the Caribbean, I said. He's been to Central America. He said that I am the most requested scholar. He's been here several times. Invited to speak at the DuSable and various churches. He's been to Kansas City. He's been to Nebraska. He's always in New York and Philly. So it ain't just that he's self-proclaimed. Enough prominent black people. He's been on all the most prominent black platforms, Black Breakfast Club. So not only did he claim I'm the Prince of Pan-Africanism, the internet, the algorithm, the black cultural community has paraded this motherfucker around for the last 20 years. And whenever one type of hustle or one of his, because at one time he was saying the homosexual agenda, he was going to rescue us from the homosexual agenda. Remember that? They were turning our sons into their daughters, and these single mothers were in these effeminate sons, and real men ain't real men anymore, and he was going to save us from the gay agenda. Before that, he was going to save black children from pharmaceutical exploitation, the overdiagnosing, the misdiagnosing, and the unnecessary drugging of black youth. That was one of his iterations. And then another time, he even went so far as to get on the whole FBA ADOS thing. He was complaining about foreigners. He even said in an interview talking about when the city of Chicago, set aside $50 million to process migrants who have been illegally dumped in the streets of Chicago, who have been illegally brought here by Floridian, and the Texas governors. They were illegally trafficking Venezuelan, Honduran, Haitian migrants and literally dumping them in the streets of Chicago. So the mayor and the city council decided to allocate funds to process these people, which is appropriate, which is governance. It would be wrong and harmful not to. And you have people coming from all over the world who were put in squalid conditions in there, and they come here. There's communicable diseases and so many other things that is necessary. And the $50 million did not even equate to 1%. Well, it didn't equate to 1% of the Chicago budget. Not 1%. Chicago spends more money than that fucking policing and providing security for Lollapalooza. Our rich movers and shakers be dropping $50 million on a political campaign and for their PACs. $50 million is not real money at the governmental scale. And black folks was in the streets. They had riled up the black community. They giving them $50 million. And none of that money was going to them. That's the thing. When they allocate money for services and products, that money goes straight to American citizens, social workers. I ran this all down when it first happened. That money, they don't go and parcel it out between the migrants. In fact, when they allocate those funds, that's good because those funds go into the hands of the professionals, the caregivers, the contractors. So it goes to the citizens to carry out this action for the city. But I digress. Dr. Fubar heard about this. I'm sure he didn't read about it and was like, yeah, they're giving money to migrants. And he started attacking migrants. So he was even playing that whole oppose the immigrants and black, jingoist, black, all that bullshit. So you'll see. And then he set himself up as the black love guru. Black women and the queens and we got to be with our sisters and policing who brothers could lay up with and being with and talking to Snow Bunny and all that shit. You notice when he mad at black women, he says some things about black women that I never heard him say about white women. White women are snow bunnies. And last time I didn't see the snow bunny, that shit is cute as hell. Black women get to be hood rats. Black women are rats and white women. That's why I say call white women lab rats and call black women cocoa bunnies. So, moving on. Dr. Fubar has evolved his message and switches up his focus and attention depending on what's trending. He's not a leader. He's an opportunist. Because a leader would be like, this is the path we need to follow. And I don't care if I got to walk it alone, but this is the path. But if you've followed Dr. Fubar's career, you'll see that he's very inconsistent about what the problem is, what the solution is, who the priorities, the directions, and he's all over the place. But really what he's looking for is what will generate the most attention. What will generate the most attention? So if you listen to him talk at 1 minute, he even kind of was riding the black conservative alpha male when Kevin Samuels was big, as big as his heart inflammation. When Kevin Samuels was big, he started really pushing that alpha male, man go your own way type shit. He's all over the place. But the algorithm loves him. The hysterical memes. And the streets, the hood, academia was like, this man is the prince of Pan-Africanism. And the problem with that is from day one, I'm like, this guy is a two-bit hustler. He's on that prosperity politics. He is not a Pan-Africanist. And what he does a lot, I hear in his lectures, if you listen to his lectures, he regurgitates a lot of African scholars and doesn't accredit them. So he articulates positions, ideas, views that are not his own. But by the time you're willing to lie about your heritage, but then they say Dr. Fubar says he's a direct descendant of Frederick Douglass. But then his father, Daddy Johnson, actually said, I told my son that. So this was a lie. His father told him that he didn't investigate. So it's one thing for this man to jump up and say, I'm the prince of Pan-Africanism. It's another thing for the whole damn community. And me, someone who has taken the time to call out his failings, his contradictions, his inconsistency, to call this motherfucker out, people would always come at me and be like, why are you attacking another black man? Why are you trying to bring down another black man? We can't be attacking. We can't boom, boom, boom. And Umar's followers are always in my fucking face. Right? And they don't think that if I say I am a Pan-Africanist and someone else is a Pan-Africanist, then if we are bumping heads and we disagree, then that delegitimizes Pan-Africanism. Now, these same motherfuckers They'll be capitalist. These same motherfuckers will be capitalist. And the capitalists, the imperialists, fought 2 world wars. They put mustard gas on each other. They nuke each other. They've been caught several times under surveillance. They fought proxy wars. But you'll never hear a motherfucker be like, man, look at them capitalists fighting. Capitalism, they can't get it. Then capitalism is illegitimate. Do I got into the conflicts inside of Islam? The conflicts inside of Christianity? The wars fought not between Christians and Muslims, but amongst Muslims and Muslims, and amongst Christians and Christians. And you'll never hear people like, whoa, they fighting each other. They can't get along. That shit ain't real. That shit ain't real. That shit ain't, they some clowns. Right? But in Pan-Africanism, we can't fight. So anyway, that's the argument. You have Yvette Carnell, who has articulated that Pan-Africanism is dead. That we don't get along with black people. They don't like us. We don't like them. And therefore, we are Americans. And they come in here trying to take our jobs, take our money, take our status. And we need to all gather up our social security numbers and gather up our birth certificates and show these white folks that we are real Americans and fight for the rights of every man. And that our most precious asset is our American lineage. And she's a sucker MC too. And so for a long time, Yvette Carnell has particularly attacked Pan-Africanism. And Tariq Nasheed has attacked Pan-Africanism and had a very, very brutal in public and his hilarious fight with what's his name, Dr. Fubar. And so now these 2 people are coming up saying, see, these Pan-Africanists, Umar, who is their prince, and the followers, they're suckers. They get swindled. They are insincere. It's not a viable movement, and they are literally taking a victory lap because they got this tether wars or diaspora wars. They organized a boycott saying that Black Americans or African Americans should not patronize businesses by Africans or people from the Caribbean. We should not patronize the businesses of African people who do not have lineage that dates back to chattel slavery. Now, don't tell these motherfuckers that chattel slavery existed in the Caribbean. A Jamaican is a descendant of slavery. I'm throwing it in according to what their definition. And Jamaica is in what they call the Americas. The America is 2 continents, North and South America, archipelagos, and that the Western Hemisphere, most of the earthly structures in the Western Hemisphere are titled America. So a Mexican is also an American. A Canadian is also an American. As Amos Wilson said, if you really want to play this game and you really want to talk this shit, you got to call yourself a United Statesian. You are a citizen of the United States of America, not America. But this shit ain't supposed to make sense. It's supposed to make dollars. Because that's all this ADOS FBA shit is. But Umar was falsely representing Pan-Africanism. But you see how he conducts his business, his affairs, and his solutions. Dr. Fubar would sell the Black community panaceas. And a panacea is a singular solution for a multitude of problems. And a lot of Black leaders are into constructing and selling a panacea, because if you construct and sell a panacea, it's much easier to rally people around and get them to buy into a singular solution. then you can keep people lined up and orderly, and they're lined up and orderly for the sake of not organizing, but for the sake of hyper exploitation. So if I tell you Jesus Christ is the way, or the Prophet Muhammad is the way, or reparations is the way, or black businesses are the way, a black marriage, getting you a black woman, loving a black woman is the way. If I can sell you on a singular solution to this broad problem, then I can sell you products. Now, if I say, well, black oppression, colonialism involves a myriad of interrelated phenomena. Capitalism, white hegemony, ecosystem destruction, and hyper exploitation and disruption. And I can just go on down the list. Economics, politics, family, culture, warfare, guerrilla warfare, asymmetrical warfare, psychological warfare, socio-emotional cultivation. And now if I tell you this big problem, and every single one of those problems are interrelated and intertwined, and our solutions have to be broad and dynamic enough to address all these problems dynamically. And you have some black leaders that take the position that they don't care about women's right and access to abortion. They don't care about regulating the price of insulin for the millions of our people that have type 1 and type 2 diabetes. They don't care about housing costs and housing stability and the houses. They don't care about drug reform. They don't care about sexual predation of youth and women and other vulnerable communities. They were like, listen, we got to get free. We got to get this reparations. And we don't get reparations, we ain't going to vote. Like, wait a minute. For any political platform, there are at least 1,001 various issues that you have to contend with and advocate for. I had a brother on here a few weeks ago talk about, what do you say, a boutique issue or I had a brother tell me one time, a garnish issue. A garnish? He said like, oh, that's a garnish issue. Like that's a side, that's a decorative issue. What we need is our own businesses. What we need is our own banks. What we need is an influx of capital from the collapsing US dollars. We need a whole barrel full of US dollars. Just like the last white country that went into fascism, and they were literally using wheelbarrows of dollars to buy one loaf of bread. We need a big influx of cash or we never gonna be free. So Dr. Fubar sells this, open the school and train up these warriors and send the warriors out into the world. That's a panacea. I know two brothers here that have excellent schools. Private, independent, African-centered schools. Freedom Home Academy, Marcus Klein, and Village Leadership Academy. Brother Osei. It's not his school. He has a whole network of people that he works with. They got private schools. I've had conversations with both of them brothers. And one thing they'll never tell you is that independent schools are the solution for black people. They might be support for children suffering. They might be an alternative to CPS. There's a lot of things, but one thing they will never sell you, the people who are actually been doing for more than a decade what Fubar is claiming he's going to do, never sell it as a solution or a panacea. Anybody telling you one solution for our problems is hustling you, unless they say it's revolutionary Pan-Africanism. But I digress. But let's talk about this ADOS shit. So you have a person who has been falsely identified as the Prince of Pan-Africanism. But when you look at his solutions from not just opening the school, but what he was promoting is strict gender hierarchy, a return. Basically, he's a fascist because fascists promote the return to something that never existed. And I hate calling black folks fascists because that's like calling black people capitalists or calling a black person a racist. So he's not a fascist. I call them, he's a black conservative. I think that's better. He's a black reactionary. A friend of mine called me a reactionary the other day. I hope she was joking. Because I dared to ask a question and she called me a reactionary. So, anyway. And she's from Missouri. To tell you, these Missouri sisters, man, FUBAR should have never. They know how to cut. Anyway, he's a conservative, right? Traditional family structures, traditional family values, economic. He's to support black business. So capitalist economic structures, gender hierarchy, a Judeo-Christian gender hierarchy. Man as the head of the family, put the fathers in the home as the lead, and the women are to be barefoot and pregnant and silent. Capitalist innovation from black banking, basically a black version of what white folks did and a black version of what white folks got. That's his whole program across the board. We got to just have our own version of this white stuff, right? And that's what he promotes. That's what he sells. And what's crazy is, even though he beefs with FBA and ADOS, they're all but identical. ADOS and FBA have the identical goal of FUBAR. They just have a different methodology for achieving that goal. They just have a different methodology. And I won't even say methodology because they don't really apply it. They have different rhetoric to advance the goal. Right? So FUBAR will travel all over the world and collect checks and love and accolades from African people all over the world and then come back to the United States and complain about a city allocating funds to process refugees. And many of those refugees are from the fucking very countries he went and collected a check from. He'll get on here with a Haitian flag tied around his head and then attack policies that give resources to the refugees from Haiti, Honduras, and other places that are direct victims of U.S. imperialism, U.S. destabilization, U.S. blockades, and economic tyranny. But a lot of that is on us. A lot of that is on us. Because we don't like conflict. We're very insecure. We think if conscious people fight amongst ourselves, we lose legitimacy. I have black people complaining about me calling shit out all the time. Now, I know for a fact, history can demonstrate, any movement that cannot tolerate internal critique, internal criticism, and even internal conflict will never be able to weather external conflict. And it's not the internal conflict. The internal conflict should be, how do we best apply and advance this agenda? That should be the internal conflict. But there's also this thing called, well, y'all don't like it, but we absolutely need it, gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is not a bad thing. And anybody, if you ever complained about gatekeeping, right now, go outside and unlock your car doors and let all your windows down. And then when you come back to your house, unlock every door in your house, open and unlock every window. Gatekeeping is necessary. There should be standards. There should be requirements. Now, I don't think gatekeeping tell you you can't pierce your ears like these cults. You can't pierce your ear. You know, you can't wear, you know, you have to wear strict gender clothes. A man needs to wear the pants. I'm not talking about that type of bullshit, that cultish control shit. But one thing you cannot do is ally with the enemies and oppressors of African people. Can we just ask that? That we don't align ourselves or endorse the enemies of African people? That we hold solidarities for all just aspirations? All just aspirations of all African people of the globe, we have to stand in solidarity. I mean, these things are broad and simple, right? Standards for leaders, transparency, no leaders for life, no dictatorships, no cults of personality. there's no such thing as a talented 10th ideology. And the talented 10th ideology was never applied. That was something that was suggested, but it was never applied. There's no such thing as the talented 10th ideology. And the man that gave us the talented 10th eventually became a Pan-Africanist, a communist. But I digress. See, people reading that. Did I ever say that? I said what he did. I said what he did. Did I say that he... well, I guess, man. People going, listen. Just go back. No, I'm not going to say that. But I never said that. I told you what he did wrong. I told you specifically the shit he did wrong. But instead of dealing with what I said, instead of saying, no, he didn't, or yes, he did that, you're going to get something I didn't say and throw it in the fucking mix. Lord have his mercy. Lord have his mercy. I don't know. This has been happening to me for a better part of a decade. I don't know why I get upset with it. But let's move on. So anyway, long story short, the fall and corruption of Dr. Fubar does not reflect on the larger Pan-African movement. Number one. Number two, I think that the larger Pan-African movement, every conscious revolutionary Pan-African should be able to go back at least 10 years and say, listen, this is my critique, this is my call out, this is my condemnation of Dr. Fubar. If just now today, when he starts talking about black women's vaginas smelling like unclean fish tank, when he said publicly that a black woman smelled like something crawled up inside her and died, calling a grown black woman in front of her children and all this stuff, and going behind this black woman's back and contacting her children directly. If just now is your first time calling him out, you have failed as a Pan-Africanist. Like I said, if you are a person who articulates, who speaks publicly, who writes, who talks, who publishes, identifies as a Pan-Africanist, and you have not leveled any sound, grounded, I ain't talking about just make fun of or share a meme, but sound and grounded criticism of Dr. Umar Johnson, then you have failed. You have failed. If you do not take upon yourself the responsibility to look internally and to critique Pan-Africanism as a movement, Pan-Africanism as an agenda, Pan-Africanism as an ideology, and Pan-Africanists who put themselves up. Like if there's a brother around the way, brothers like, yeah, I'm Pan-Africanist and he's shooting dice and doing whatever the hell he want to do. What did I say? But by the time you put yourself in a position of authority, scrutiny must come. We should not allow demagogues and cults of personalities to emerge and have a comfortable position while they're walking around using our language, our flag. And there are some sincere, I just talked to a brother who gave $3,000 years ago. Gave $3,000, he said, to Umar over time. And I'm like, bro, and he was like, yeah, it was a bad call. So he's out here conning African people in the name of our struggle. So yes, we do need to gatekeep. Don't let these people play with you and be like, oh, gatekeeping is wrong to gatekeep. We got to show unity. We can't criticize. We can't do this. We can't do that. I don't think that, and I've said it before, he's not a legitimate Pan-Africanist. His ideology, his goals, his agendas, his thing. The only thing Pan-African about him is the little flag he hangs up in his filthy little corner in his hoarded little house. He has some Pan-African terminology, and he might quote Dr. John Henry Clark. Dr. John Henry, he might quote, he's got a few quotations. But when you look at his agenda, as I've said before, I'm almost sick of saying this, and I hope he goes away so I don't have to say it again. This dude's ideology and his agenda aligns more with focus on the family, the Heritage Foundation, the Southern Baptist Convention. His ideology, just recently he was sitting up here talking about black women and abortion and said black women did not create life, so they don't have the right to take life. So if a black woman is pregnant, she didn't create that life within her, so she doesn't have a right or shouldn't have a right to terminate the pregnancy. Oh, let me quote him. He said they should be very careful, basically discouraging women who might consider abortion. And his rationale for discouraging black women from getting an abortion is saying that that's not your life and you didn't create that life. And this is a revolutionary Pan-Africanist talking this pseudoscience, non-scientific, sexist, patriarchal bullshit. How the fuck we let it pass? Well, let's move over to the people taking the victory lap, because a lot of people are going to use that, and I think it's silly. Anybody that comes to me and says, even though I oppose Christianity, I oppose the adherence to, the practice of, the teachings of, the prophecies of, I oppose Christianity. But any black person that comes to me and say, well, I ain't a Christian no more because Bishop Eddie Longstroke or Bishop T.D. Jakes, they fake Christians, so I ain't a Christian no more, then I would have to caution that person with using these individuals as their justification for abandoning Christianity. Now, as I came up, I knew a lot of scumbag preachers. Now, I'm going to have to talk sensitive now, because one of those scumbag preachers was a family member of mine who robbed the community blind. He set up a church fund and was collecting money and buying Cadillacs and buying ranches and living good, traveling the world, getting limos to and from the airport, all from the money he collected from a little storefront church. Right? And I saw that. When I was 12 years old, I was baptized. By the time I was 14, I was completely out of the church. You couldn't pay me. You couldn't force me. You couldn't drag me into a church. I hated it. But I would never say, well, I say his name, shit. Pastor Bowie. Pastor Bowie is the reason I'm no longer a Christian. It is the tenets, the teachings, the prophecies, the dogma, the recorded history, the fallacious claims of the church. It's what I learned from the dogma itself. So anybody representing something, same with Islam or anything else, I reject. Because no individual embodies any type of broad movement. So even if it's something I would tell a brother or sister, hey, you shouldn't be a Christian, right? And they say, why? I'm not going to say, well, look at T.D. Jakes. Or who's that one dude in Louisiana that when there was a flood, he wouldn't let people into his church? He looked like Elvis. He looked like an Elvis impersonator. Who's that dude with the big teeth? I don't remember his name. My wife just said his name because we went into the hotel and he was playing on the hotel TV. Anyway. Yes, Joel Osteen, thank you. Man, I got the best comment section. Thank y'all. Joel Osteen. I wouldn't say, well, look at Joel Osteen. I'll be like, listen, let's look at the Bible and the tenets, what the Bible allows for and what the Bible doesn't allow for. The Bible is not a rational, it's not a just, it's not even a righteous or moral document. Let's look at the history of Christianity and how African people became introduced to Christianity. And I would tell them that. I would never, and maybe to accentuate, just use those people as the examples, but I've never. So anybody that's saying I'm not a Pan-Africanist, I'm not in the conscious community because of FUBAR, then that is an insincere person or that's an idiot. Forgive me. I've even had somebody put up a video on YouTube. I've never seen it, but several people contacted me, and I'm not going to say this obnoxious person's name. But they made a whole video as why they are not Pan-Africanists. And they're blaming me and my conduct for the reason they are not Pan-Africans. Now I am a lot of things, and I'm not a lot of other things. But the things I'm not going to sit here and tell you because of this person in this particular thing was bad or good. I'm not a capitalist because Jeff Bezos is a parasite. It just don't make sense. So let's move on. Dr. Fubar's fall is, I think, a good thing. If he falls, he could easily rebound from this. Because he's a weirdo, and his followers are weirdos. And one thing about weirdos, they got stamina. You ever try to outpace weirdos in public? You ever go up to the goddamn Hebrew Israelites standing on the thing and try to argue them down? Where do weirdos people get this stamina? I know it's a rhetorical question, because nothing like people who, it's not really, but it's I'm just saying, weirdos got stamina. They can berate you online. They can in public, in the internet. They just unrelenting. And he's a weirdo. You know, remember when Dr. Fubar said he was abstinent? And then the conscious stripper, which I love the conscious stripper. I actually heard an interview from the conscious stripper. And I thought it was just a gimmick. I thought the conscious stripper was just a gimmick she used. But when I hear her speak, she is genuinely conscious. Now, I know she's the stripper part. I believe her. She don't have to show me. If she wants to give evidence, I'm willing to accept the evidence that she's a stripper. But I'll take her word for it. But for the conscious part, I'm like, she messing with Fubar. She ain't no conscious stripper. Come on, that's just a name. But she's genuinely an insightful, intelligent, and very conscious, aware person. I'm like, wow, she's genuinely conscious stripper. Like, who am I? Like, I shouldn't be surprised. I'm a progressive. Of course, stripper can be conscious. Your job don't dictate your level of consciousness unless you're a cop or a soldier, but by and large, or a preacher. But anyway, Dr. Fubar was like, I'm abstinent, brother. And she gave all this thing where he was a horn dog. He was lusting after this woman so hard, and they had been going to town on each other forever. When he wanted to tell the community he was abstinent, that was a lie. And now he just came out saying that he has never masturbated once in his life. Dr. Fubar said, I have never masturbated, not one time. So that, you know for a fact, this dude is cocking the gauge David. But he said, and I hate to have to say this, but this is how obnoxious. And the fact that such an obnoxious individual can have any level of prominence. But he said he had one wet dream when he was a junior or senior in high school. And that's the only time he had any type of emission, involuntary. I mean, he had one wet dream, never masturbated. And I'm like, even at that, I'm like, wow, man, I thought I was the only brother who could make that claim. But he's a weirdo, a freaking weirdo. And, you know, now there's this conscious vacuum. And the irritated bowels, I'm not going to say who I'm talking about, but he is irritated. He claims to be an irritated mythical creature, but I call him the irritated bowels. He's now, people are genuinely that are like canceling, and now he's trying to reemerge and reassert himself after his wife, claimed that she put him through psychological and emotional torture for a number of years. And then after they begin to separate and seek divorce, his followers began a campaign of harassment of this black woman. And this is another, irritated bowels is another man who gets up here and talks about the black family and protecting the black family. So you got him, you know, every time one of these demagogues falls off, either an old one will try to reassert themselves or a brand new one will come out of nowhere. Y'all out here falling for Yada's trick. Yada went from saying healthy women don't have menstruals, they don't have periods, to saying if you go on a date with a woman, you got to give her $50,000. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about. I just want to say one thing real quick. I don't even know. I'm gonna say this for another time. Let's open this up because I got some people that are mad. Tafari, get out the comments. No, he stood me up. Tafari, putting him on blast. We were supposed to go have a coffee, and I saw him. Came to the north side, and I saw the brother, very talented brother. That's the thing with these artist brothers. Brother's very talented. But I saw him. I said, "Hey, bro, we gotta have dinner, Tafari. Tafari. Always, I want to say Tafari, but you said Tafari. I said, bro, let's get some coffee. Let's break bread. Let's talk. And then Skip gets on me like, you talk to Tafari. So, okay, I didn't even read that last sentence. He'll be reaching out soon. Okay, then I retract that. Forget everything I just said. You know, I'm egocentric. You can't turn me down. Anyway, so all that to say is Pan-Africanism is not dead. Pan-Africanism is not damaged. But I do think we as Pan-Africanists, one thing we can learn is don't be afraid to call people out. Don't be afraid. I think it should go dialogue, discourse, debate, denunciation. So if somebody is out here repping Pan-Africanism and they have some divergent positions, or they are conducting themselves in a manner where they're collecting money in the name of the Pan-African struggle, or lauding themselves as a leader or a prominent person in it, then we should reach out to them. We should talk to them, depending on how far gone they are, to see if we can begin to refine and bring them into the fold. If they persist, then we expose, we isolate, we expel. It shouldn't be that hard. There should be a gatekeeping component. Refine, iron sharpen iron. Our ideology, our movement, our structure is worthy of not just cultivation, promotion, advancement, but it is worthy of being protected and held to a certain level of esteem, to where just can't nobody come through and claim our shit. And if you claiming our shit and you're not doing right by our shit, then we should call you out. And a lot of times, we in the conscious Black community, we in the Pan-African community, we left it up to the single mothers. We left it up to the gay, the LGBTQAI, the gender non-conforming sisters and brothers out there. We left it up to people that he targeted, people that he punched down at, to call him out, to denounce him. And a lot of Pan-Africanism, so-called Pan-Africanists, came out to protect him from these vulnerable populations that he would target, came out to validate him. So it is our role, if somebody's misrepping us, misrepresenting our movement, our ideology, our positions, or claiming status and leadership within our struggle that they haven't earned, they don't deserve, or they don't sustain, and we're not stepping up to call them out, because we don't want to be seen as divisive. We want to be seen as unified. Ain't nothing, listen, there's a lot of things that can invalidate our movement, but one thing that can't invalidate our movement is infighting. Until we fight a nuclear war amongst Pan-Africanists, until we fight at least 2 world wars, a holy war, or a crusade, Pan-Africans' internal conflicts, ideological, methodological conflicts, in no way these more established, legitimate ideologies that we oppose, including the integrationist, the accommodationist. That's why they're not even, ADOS and FBA aren't even integration. They're accommodationist. Dr. King was more radical than these weirdos. And I think we're going to talk about that Wednesday with Rational Radicals. We're going to talk specifically about the accommodationist FBA and ADOS. So anyway, I like to open this up. Questions, comments, criticisms. First, I want to give thanks and praise to Roman for that super sticker. Thank you so much. And I know, I acknowledge times are hard on the boulevard for everybody. So, every contribution helps. Thank you. Much appreciated. Let's have some questions, comments, criticism, because I know it's some people. Okay, everybody out there, because I've seen in the comments a few of you guys. You can stop juggling Dr. Fubar's testicles and get on your keyboards, or you can come live. I shared the link. You can come on live. Any questions, comments, criticism? I guess it didn't go everywhere. Okay. I'll put this on now. No questions, comments, because I so thoroughly Bengals game. I don't watch ball chasing. Sith Lord, how are you watching NFL? Ain't there a boycott going on against the NFL? Didn't NFL just embrace MAGA? Didn't NFL just scuttle the Spike Lee, Colin Kaepernick documentary? There was a Colin Kaepernick documentary made by Spike Lee, and the NFL bought 10% of the media company that was going to platform and promote it, and they scuttled that. How are you watching the NFL game, man? Shame on you, Sith Lord Prince. Hey, Diallo. Hi, BroDiallo. Why can't a black person be a racist? Black people cannot be racist because here's the thing about racism that white folks don't understand, and many black people don't understand. Racism is not simply disliking another person because of this color of their skin. Racism is a system. Racism is the exploitation and oppression of people based on their race. So in order to have racism, you have to have institutional power. So if you can find a place where black people not only have institutional power, but they have used that institutional power to systematically subvert another race of people strictly based on their race, have undermined them culturally, politically, socially, culturally, economically, socially, subverted them. Then I would say, wow, look at those black racists. And after I say, wow, look at those black racists, I'd be like, where can I sign up? But so you need institutional power, or as a short way to say it, prejudice plus power. Black people do not have the institutional power to deny the average white person home. Now, a black person can work in a bank, and then when a white person came in, he's like, I ain't giving this honky no loan. That's a prejudiced black man, maybe. But that's not the policy of the bank. Now, if you look at racism, racism was written into the U.S. Constitution, the U.S. Penal Code, U.S. written and unwritten policy. It's written into their sacred documents, their religious, economic, political documents. So black people, we will only have the privilege or opportunity to be racist when we control institutions and the means of production. Show me where black people have founded or taken control of an institution that is engaged in racism against any other group. And I'll show you some black racists. Now, you can go somewhere and be like, oh, black folks don't like, a black person that doesn't like white folks, I wouldn't call that a racist. I'd call that rational. I mean, what the fuck it take for you not to like somebody? I would never convince a black person, wow, you should like these people. So that's why. I'm not sure why we have to continue to explain this. What are my thoughts on Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad? I love Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. I think he was wonderful. I don't agree with everything that he said, but I do think he was sincere. And not only was he consistent, he was constantly evolving. Like, it was really wonderful to him. He woke up to the cult of the Nation of Islam cult, and he calls it out. So I really love him. I really enjoyed his lectures. I was in New York around the time he was there. I moved to New York in 1992 when he was active, and I think he was a wonderful guy. It's really a shame what they did when he tried to found and reconstruct the new Black Panthers and what's that guy's name? I'm not good with names tonight. But God, I can't believe. Anyway, I'm not even going to try to remember his name. But anyway, I am an admirer of Khalid Abdul-Muhammad. I'll say that. Somebody asked, where's the link? I'm going to put the link in again. If I miss your question, then I'm sorry. Okay. Now y'all talking to each other. Y'all not talking to me. Okay. This is a good question. Sorry to ask again. Don't apologize. That's nothing. What would be the standard requirements for general gatekeeping? General gatekeeping for Pan-Africanism should be defined and determined by the interest and priorities of the global African struggle. That should be the standards. Does this gatekeeping requirement advance the interest of the Pan-African struggle? Does it support or reinforce or protect the interest, or does it subvert it? Now, that's a lot of things. I said some things before, but that should be the standard or requirement. So if somebody comes to say, you as a Pan-Africanist, you shouldn't do this, they should be able to demonstrate with evidence supported that what they're saying you should not be doing is subversive to or counters African people. So there are a lot of Pan-African sexists, a lot of Pan-African homophobes. Now, me personally, I don't think you can be Pan-African and sexist or Pan-African and homophobic, but I'm not the prince. And you would have to tell me, oh, we can't have these gays in our movement. You would have to demonstrate to me, how does a person who wants to make a positive contribution to the just aspirations of African people, being a heterosexual or gay, how does one outweigh the other? And you'd have to give me evidence, not just how you feel. So our requirements and standards should be evidence-based. They should be supported by scholarship, research, critical examination, and historical precedent. So those are standards and requirements, as opposed to specific gatekeeping requirements and measures. I hope that answers your question. You're right. Many people do have misconceptions about what racism is. And because they do lean on the racist definition, they lean on the racist definition of racism. And like I said, the average white person, even good white people, they think that racism is a personality flaw. You know, you have the best white people in the world, their aunties, their cousins, people they sit across from, people who bathe them and change their diapers are racist. So they don't want to look at racism as a fundamental cultural characteristic, because white culture is racist. America is racist. So they like to pretend that there are some individuals in this country who are racist, that they can shake their finger at, hey, that's bad. You know, or they don't even shake their fingers. Most white people, when they encounter racists, the good whites, they roll their eyes instead of bashing heads, punch Nazis. So yes, they don't understand and they confuse racism, because white folks, they don't want to take the responsibility for racism. And if they went beyond the simple Webster's dictionary of racism and looked at the historical definition, the functional definition of racism, many of those white people would get caught up in that. I've met several really good white people. I've met several really good white folks. I had somebody in the waiting room, but they didn't. I've been wanting to hear from the Dr. Fubar supporter. Come on and give me that smoke. Oh, what's the difference between socialism and communism? I have to do a whole show on this. Communism and socialism. Socialism there's an old saying that I really like. A communist is a socialist in a hurry. But the main difference between communism and socialism is that communism is basically asserts that when you have a dictatorship of the proletariat and the workers own the means of production, that means that the state can be dissolved. You will not need any state or governing apparatus. You will not need any level of bureaucracy. So communism is a mission that goes a step beyond socialism, because socialism is the common ownership of the means of production is owned by the workers, and all value produced by labor must be returned to labor, but it does not rule out the governing apparatus. So communism goes a little further than socialism, even though they're both socialistic. And so that instead of having a government and a state, communism asserts that once communism is appropriately applied, then the state will go away, nations will go away, governments will go away, and there will be no need for them because everyone will live in this communal system and cooperate and share amongst each other. Whereas socialism operates with more so within the state apparatus. So the state can oversee socialists and enforce socialism. That's the major difference. There are some other differences, but on a broad sense. But for the common people, in terms of struggle against capitalism, communism and socialism are all but interchangeable at this point. So the communists are socialists. And all communists are socialists, but not all socialists are communists. But I like I said, I can do a whole discussion on that, and I think I will, because black folks, some guy just came and told me Karl Marx was a racist, which wasn't, and like I'll say something talking about dialectics or historical materialism, and people be like, Marx is a racist. And I've been saying to them, when people talk about we got to have our own banks, we got to have our own businesses, and I'll jump up and be like, well, Adam Smith was a racist, but they don't get it. They don't get it. Every time, and I've said that at least half a dozen times, I've had an opportunity to blurt out that Adam Smith was a racist, and they don't get it. I just today had a brother tell me about how Karl Marx was a racist. Just try to be concise. What's that? What is admirable about selling booty? Oh, you're not asking me. You're asking Robert. Okay, I'll leave that to y'all. But I think you would have to ask somebody who buys booty. I think they're best suited to answer. Thank you so much. Wow. Josu, thank you for the love. Lord. Oh, blessings on blessings. Blessings on blessings. Thank y'all so much. Thank y'all so much. Oh, I guess dress professional and people will. Blessings on blessings. Thank you. For all it. What? I'm searching for questions. I hate dead air as much as the next man. How long do you think the FBA and ADOS cults will last as long as the white folks fund it? FBA and ADOS is an asset. I think it is a parasite feeding off the ass of MAGA. So as MAGA dies, so will ADOS. That's my prediction. Because they feed off that energy. And if you look about a lot of, oh, these people are invading our country and taking our shit. They're taking what belongs to us. It's basically proto-fascist, jingoistic. But the problem is that viruses mutate, because ADOS and FBA are mutations of prosperity gospel. So just because ADOS and FBA goes away doesn't mean, and I'm going to talk about in Wednesday's show, make sure you subscribe to African World Order, YouTube, and the Rational Radical show. I'm going to talk about ADOS and FBA and the origins of this accommodationist type thing, because it goes back over 100 years. Ain't nothing new about anything they're saying. And I'm going to tell you about the disgusting roots of that organization. I had planned to do it tonight, but we got away. I guess, man. And thank y'all so much for the contributions. I am truly appreciative. It's needed, and I am inspired. And I need a new camera. I don't know if y'all see how much my camera is acting up. BroDiallo, would you identify in the Black culture as a gatekeeper as you have? No. In Black culture, no. I'm not a Black cultural gatekeeper. No. Black culture is a very broad thing. So Pan-Africanism, consciousness, Black radicalism is one component in the larger. But no, I would like to be. If I had the power to be, I would be a gatekeeper. But no, I'm not. But I would like to be. I wish I was. But no, I don't think that I have enough presence or power or impact. And this is me being honest. But I do my part to make the positive contribution. But no, I don't think I'm a gatekeeper. And y'all should be happy about that, because can you imagine the tyranny of BroDiallo? Okay, Diallo Kenyatta, what people who develop sincere critique of ADOS tend to do continuously neglect to mention anti-Black sentiment or argument about immigrants and populations. That's fertile ground. Yes, that's very true. Hey, I thought you were one of the Umar. That is very true. ADOS is anti-Black. If you've been following Yvette Carnell, she was very anti-Black, and she's classist too. Remember when she was at Howard University, she would always talk about how the poor Black, I got a cousin at Howard right now. He's studying at Howard, getting his bachelor's at Howard. He just started his sophomore year. And so I got a cousin at Howard. And one thing you say about Howard, it's surrounded by poverty. Many college towns, I don't know. Like you go to the University of Chicago, if you walk 4 blocks south of that, you're looking at abject poverty. So she was always complaining years after she graduated about how the Blacks would come onto the campus. And she didn't like the fact that they had to interact with the poor Blacks. And then when somebody called her out on it, she was like, oh, they were robbing us. But she didn't say that in her first takedown, in her first criticisms of those poor Blacks at Howard. She didn't say anything about robbery or them committing crime. She just didn't like having to deal with these poor, unwashed masses surrounding her Negro HBCU campus. And then she was like, they was robbing us. So if you go back in time, man, this woman has no credibility. Somebody saved, because I had seen one video that she made. She was wearing a MAGA hat. And that video and that image had disappeared. But somebody who had saved it or screenshot it posted the picture of her in a MAGA hat. So I don't think ADOS will survive the fall of MAGA. And here's the funny thing about these coon-ass sellouts, though. ADOS won't survive the fall of MAGA, but it won't survive the rise of MAGA either, because they're useful idiots. So if MAGA entrenches and has any level of longevity beyond Trump's administration, then they're going to dispose of them like they did the Latinos for Trumps and all the other stooges. So that's the thing. Whether they rise or fall, it's going to age like spoiled milk. And a lot of these ADOS coons are going to deny it. You know, you look in history, you in 2025, you talk to any old head that was around in the 60s. Oh, I was down with Malcolm. I was there with Dr. King. When Dr. King and Malcolm and the Black Panthers never had like upwards of, they had like a fraction, 5 to 10% of support of the Black community. And they would do surveys in the Black community and says, hey, would you support a Black uprising, a Black guerrilla movement? 70 to 90%, depending on where they would survey, of Black people said, I do not support Black people taking up arms or engaged in resistance to the U.S. government. But now you talk to every old head was a member. Like, why the hell? Every old head. So in 2050, you won't be able to find any Black person that's going to admit to dealing with ADOS. Not even 2030. Oh, I would. And they're going to delete their thing. But that's the thing with social media. You can lie and say you was a Panther. If you're 75, 80 years old, you can lie about being the Panthers, being down with the movement. You can lie. But now we got social media on their asses. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap this up, man. Y'all have been very generous. Give thanks and praise for the financial support. It is needed, and more than needed, it is appreciated. J1 Zaid, I can't thank you enough. That's a very generous contribution to the BroDiallo Show. I don't know what goal you're talking about, but I'm more likely to say no, they haven't achieved the goal, and I don't even know what the goal is. But just anything related to Russia and China, I say no. Shout out to Cuba. Long live the Cuban Revolution. Yes, anarchy. And so, yes, that's true. But I want to talk more about socialism because I am a socialist. I advocate for socialism, and we will implement socialism. So I want to talk more. See, I guess I'm a nerd. I get right. Use that every time. Whenever a black person says, "Oh, we're gonna open our own business, we got to get our own banks," you need to blurt out, "Adam Smith was a socialist," because I guarantee you, if you're somewhere talking about, communalism, cooperative, socialism, oh, Marx was a racist, and I'm not even a Marxist, but I have mad respect. I admire and agree with 80% of his critique and analysis and his conclusion. The Communist Manifesto, I think I first read the Communist Manifesto in, 94, 95. I've been seeing that book around all the time. All the radicals had the copy. And I sat down and read that book like, God damn. Read the Communist Manifesto. It's not even a book. The Communist Manifesto is a pamphlet. Marx is not a good writer. His shit is a burden to read, but it's worth the effort. If you don't like Engels, or read Lenin. Lenin is good to read. I like reading Lenin. That's a wild boy. Read Lenin. He's a much better writer than Marx. But yeah, these are good white folks. Because here's the thing. Marx was trying to civilize his own people. He was talking to and trying to civilize white people. Marx was not trying to bring his shit to us. So Marx did two things. He told on his people. He explained a lot. Takes one to know one. He snitched on his people. He talked a lot about his people's outlook, his motivation, their Sealy. He talks a lot about the consciousness, the reality and history of Europeans, people who identify as white. And he talked about their problem, and he talked about the remedies for white folks. And it's good. It's good shit. And they read our shit. Believe you me. There ain't an elite white person. I've gone to several estate sales. And whenever I go to an estate sale, especially in a wealthy person's home, I always go straight to their books. I went to this one estate sale at this mansion in Hyde Park years ago. And you go to his basement, and he had a leather Zulu shield and the small spear. He had all these African artifacts. He had books by everybody from Dick Gregory, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen, a white man living in a mansion. Got our shit, but we don't read their shit. But I digress. Yeah, read him, I guess. Yeah, there's some, I don't know what, I think you're talking about Afro-pessimism. There's some good arguments there. Just the branding is so bad. Oh, we got some Uhuru folks in the house. Okay, I ain't mad at you, like Tupac said. Anyway, let's get going. I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all, man. The stickers, man. Y'all showed up and showed out. Much appreciated. I'm glad I can get this tie off. Pan-Africanism lives and will endure. And here's the thing about Pan-Africanism. It doesn't matter if black people become Pan-Africanists or not. Pan-Africanism is a material reality. I'll leave you with a quote from Dr. John Henry Clark. Dr. John Henry Clark said, the racist cab driver in New York City is a better Pan-Africanism than any black revolutionary. He said, because it don't matter if it's a Congolese, a Jamaican, or an African American standing on that corner, he ain't picking none of y'all up because he sees us as all the same. So the reality of Pan-Africanism is that we as African people have all shared the same fate. There's been different terms: imperialism, chattel slavery, what they call economic blockades. Our fates have been intertwined from day one. And there is no African anywhere in the world who has not risen or fallen with the African continent. If you look at Black people and the emancipation of African people, the emancipation of African people from chattel slavery was united across the Caribbean and the British Empire. It's white folks always talk about the domino effect. We don't listen to white people. That's why we don't read Marx. They always talk about the domino effect. If this country goes communist, they all go communist. They've been fearing that the CIA, FBI, the Mossad, MI6 or MI5, all of their intelligence agencies, all their movies, all of their exposés in fiction and in reality, they always talk about the domino effect. Because they understand when you oppress, when you create a global system of oppression and you utilize techniques developed in one place to impose them. The techniques for the suppression of the Palestinian people are being applied in St. Louis, Missouri. They're being applied in Atlanta. They're being applied in DC right now. And what they develop and the techniques for urban suppression they develop in Cop City in Atlanta, they will deploy that shit in the Congo. They will deploy that shit in Trinidad. They will deploy that shit in the favelas of Brazil. Right now, the U.S. president was financed by a South African billionaires. So their oppression is always intertwined. And if you have stable African oppression here and you have an African uprising over here, the white people who are residing over stable oppression always lend resources to those under. Because they said, well, look at how the United States responded to the Haitian Revolution. That's Pan-Africanism. The average African couldn't read. The average African didn't have access to international news. The average African wasn't even identified as human. And they were like them Haitians. If word gets out about what happened in Haiti, it's going to ruin things in Kentucky and Alabama and Mississippi. So the European oppressors, the Arab oppressors, the emerging Asian oppressors, the capitalists, the hegemons have always understood if these folks over here begin to mess up, it's going to contaminate these good ones. If the bad ones contaminate the good ones. It wasn't just when the black people in the South started rising up, they was like, it must be some northern Negroes. It must be them northern Negroes. They understand that freedom and resistance is as contagious. So Pan-Africanism is the most legitimate, most rational. If you have a global system of oppression, you need a global system of liberation. And I don't care if you don't like Kenyans. I don't care. I have a friend from Guyana. I don't like him. He's from Guyana. And every time I can't enjoy I love mangoes. I can't enjoy a mango because he tell me I don't eat mangoes right. We can fight over jollof rice all day and night. But the bottom line is we're going to share each other's fate. That's the bottom line. We have always shared the same goddamn fate. Civil rights would not be a thing without decolonization. Civil rights would not be a thing in this country. And as our civil rights are eroding and we're being pushed back on the plantation, neocolonialism is expanding on the African continent. We all going to be free or none of us. And separating us by water, by nationality, by little pieces of plastic white people hand out, by birth certificate, pieces of paper, separating us by that will not exempt us. There were a bunch of Jewish people in Poland, Krakow, who saw what was happening in Nazi Germany, a whole different country. Like, look at what's happening in Germany. I'm not a German. I'm Polish. And they went to bed looking at that German Jews getting gas, and they woke up the next morning and the Germans were at their door. And there was a bunch of Jews in Russia that were like, oh shit. You think the United States will carry out a campaign of colonialism and genocide in the Congo and Sudan? Will finance the UAE? The U.S. will not finance a proxy war between Rwanda and the Congo, just like they financed a proxy war between the Crips and the Bloods here, arming and financing both sides. Our fates are shared. If you are not a Pan-Africanism, you cannot. Let me stop before I say something. Every African is a Pan-Africanist. You have conscious and deliberate Pan-Africanists, and you have default Pan-Africanists. And you are either a traitor or an ally of your own people. If you reject the reality of Pan-Africanism, then you are a traitor to your race. And I'm going to leave it at that. Y'all have a good night. And again, thanks for the generosity of my listeners. I'll see y'all Wednesday. Allies, haters, and lovers.